Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zwick's Flicks, the Ed Zwick podcast, where we are covering Mr. Zwick's films in chronological order, the theatrical films that were released for the theater, and most, those full motion picture type films. He's done some TV films and dramas. He's written other films too. For example, Katie, by the way, welcome to my guest. I'm so used to podcasting with Katie, I sometimes just forget. Katie, my guest co-host on this episode, returning guest host Katie from the Retro Made podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, you were afraid. You're like, oh, your listeners are going to be sick of me in short order. And I'm like, first off, listeners, LOL. and secondly, no way, Katie. You are an online friend. We've yet to meet in person. I'm looking forward to the day that we do. Mm-hmm. But you are a podcasting partner on a Rock Series podcast called One More Round. And you do your own show called the Retro Made podcast, which we plugged in the show notes. And I'll let you plug that in a second here. So people will not get sick of you. But I will say now, teaser, you are also going to be on the next episode. So when I first presented this show to you, or my idea to do this podcast, when we talked on the Rocky podcast, it's like, hey, I'm going to do a side project. This is going to be a limited series, and I'm covering Ed Zwick's films, and I would like to have you take a first. I think you're one of the first pick people, and you right away picked Legends of the Fall, which we'll talk about when we get to it, and for obvious reasons. Let's be honest, why you picked it.
It's a ridiculous. Good movie.
It's a great movie, and yes, Brad. And look, even Aidan Quinn's very handsome in that film. Mm-hmm. They're all very handsome young brothers there. Yeah, in their own different ways, they have different qualities of the men that we like. Innocence. We've got the toughness, and we've got the integrity, broken integrity. Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of Aidan Quinn, I know another real side note here. Literally just today, my wife and I, we watched Blue Bloods, the TV cop drama on CBS.
Is that the one with Tom Selleck?
Yeah. It's been on for 14 seasons. We've watched every episode of every season.
Maybe I'll have to binge it. I haven't seen a single episode.
It's actually pretty good. It's your typical weekly crime of the week. Like, it's like this family's involved in every police shooting and murder mystery of the week. It's one of those, like, how can you imagine the stories this family would have to tell for 15 years of police work? Aidan Quinn was a guest star on the episode that we just watched, and I hadn't seen them in some time, and I feel terrible. I didn't recognize him. I Googled
does he look way different?
Very. It wasn't until after I Googled that it was him that I sort of saw him.
Oh, interesting.
He's 63 now, which is fine. He's 63. So, and Legends of the Fall came out in 94. So that was 30 years ago. So he's 33 in that film. Now he's 63. But you don't think that when you see Brad Pitt after 30 years, you still kind of see Brad Pitt. It's just weird. So take a Google if you want. Now people are probably Googling right now. Aidan Quinn.
The eyes probably give it away.
They do. He's still a handsome man, but you almost unrecognizable. He's put on a little bit of weight, as we get older. He's put on a little bit of weight in his face and neck area. Are you Googling it right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at images. Let me do current because,
do Aidan Quinn Blue Bloods, and his character will come up.
Yeah, I think I would recognize him.
I didn't. Well, see, I say that to you now, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm looking forward to talking about Legends of the Fall. We're not trying to delay the inevitable here as we talk about Leaving Normal. That's not what we're doing. However, I cannot wait to talk about Legends of the Fall because, again, that was one of those first films that got me on the Ed Zwick train at an early age. Katie, you are from the Retro Made podcast. Quickly plug your podcast, what it's about, and what we have next for your show.
Yeah, I really like older movies. 80s and 90s are my jam. So I have a podcast about it, pop culture sprinkled in about the time that the movie came out. And the seasons are themed. So I'm currently kind of wrapping up. There's probably like 9 more episodes in season 1 that is about Kurt Russell and Patrick Swayze, who I have deemed the ultimate everyman. Season 2 will be entirely different. I do have a theme, but just as a teaser, entirely different from that. And I think people who like 80s movies especially will love it.
You actually teased it on your first episode with me when we covered about last night. You actually said what it was about.
Did it? Okay.
No, leave it as a tease. People have to go back and listen to.
I can't remember. See, this is the problem. I'm old now. My brain.
Oh, you're not old. You're fine. Yeah, you did tease it, but I'll just say I'll leave it as a tease. But you did reveal what that would be. The theme was going to be, and I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to guest on season 2. I hope I do. I hope I get to. Okay.
You have one more to come back for Tequila Sunrise.
I can't wait. Can't wait to talk old things.
Well, Kurt Russell, do you mean?
All right, we'll save that for that discussion, of course, with the Mel feature, Tequila Sunrise. Okay, let's get into it. Leaving Normal. A couple things here first. Now, with about last night, we were at least I was able to rent it on YouTube for $5, whatever. So that's how I saw that one. For Glory, of course, I own a DVD, so I just watched it via that way. Leaving Normal is not available to rent anywhere on any streaming service like Apple TV, YouTube, nothing. So I had to use a Chinese Russian free streaming site. Well, you know what? I wanted to give it money. Now, granted, had I given myself enough time, I would have bought the DVD online, like on Amazon.com, if such a copy was available without exorbitant amount of money. Because I don't know what the supply and demand is for the show. Because it's one of those movies where it could be like, I have a DVD copy that nobody has, and it's like it's hard to find. So it's like 30 or 40 or $50 to buy it. I didn't look at the prices. So anyways, for time's sake, I had to find a streaming software online. Sorry, Ed Zwick, please don't come after me. I promised to pay you the amount of the film, whatever it was, to buy a ticket back in '92. Katie tried to use the same site, and unfortunately, your virus software didn't block it. What's wrong with your software? Mine blocked everything. It shut everything down, but yours didn't like it.
It was really iffy, and I was like, well, this came from Ryan. It was like, this is unsafe. Do you want to visit anyway? And then I did, and then anywhere you were supposed to click play, it was just...
Did you do it on your phone or PC?
PC.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well, anyways, I used Norton and AdBlocker, so I think those two combined, nothing popped up, nothing came up, so I was able to watch it. Anyways, I don't care sharing this because again, who's going to get mad at us? We tried, okay, and then I recorded it for Katie, sent it to you via Google Drive, yes, and so it all worked out. Okay, I say that for the record. I wanted to stream this and I wanted to rent it, but it wasn't available anywhere. And also, I didn't know Ed Zwick did this film, and I didn't know this film existed. All these things combined, I saw for the first time, of course, just for this podcast. Katie, what are your general overall impressions and thoughts, your expectations maybe going in, and your overall thoughts about the movie?
I, too, was completely unaware of its existence. I assumed it would just be like a meh movie, but I was extraordinarily pleasantly surprised. I thought this was fantastic.
Wonderful.
And it's a shame that it's hard to watch. I really, really liked it. What did you think?
Well, I truly enjoyed it too. I thought it was a gem of a film. And I went online, of course. I went online. No, for this podcast, of course, I did research. And some of the research I came across was how beloved it is by a lot of people who know about the film, who've given a chance to watch the film. Of course, there's like any film, there's people who thought it was meh or whatever. That's fine to connect with them in any way, shape, or form. But it was nice to see, especially on IMDb, when you go to the user reviews, there's like 27 user reviews. All of them, the people that took the time to write something, were very positive about this film, mentioning a variety of different feelings they had regarding the film. And I've got a bit of a synopsis here on some of their comments. Many reviewers found the movie unexpectedly, just like you said, good and enjoyable, with several rated 8 or 10 or higher. Now, we're going to get into this. The film was often compared to Thelma and Louise, but is considered different and more uplifting than Thelma and Louise. Now, have you seen Thelma and Louise, of course? Have you?
Oh, yeah. It's a classic. I love Thelma and Louise. And they even kind of made a joke about it. Oh, this is Louise, or this is Thelma. One of them said,
yes,
they're hitchhiking, and we see a series of people they hitchhike with, and there's just like an annoying mom and daughter that they're with. They make up a story. They don't say anything real about themselves. And they're like, oh, this is Louise, and she's a...
And who'd have thought a little old housewife from Bellingham, Washington would have a law practice that'd cover 3.5 states? So, anywho, what do you gals do?
Well, I'm a structural analyst, architectural consultant, that sort of thing. And Louise here is in mergers and acquisitions.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I remember that scene with the hitchhiking. That was a fun scene. Of course, hey, we'll say this right now, guys. As we said before, is this your first time listening to the podcast? Thank you, welcome. We do not do a plot by plot synopsis of the film. That is not what we're here for. We will give a synopsis of the film, but we're not going to do plot by plot. We're just going to talk about different scenes that stuck out to us from the actors involved. We're going to talk about Ed Zwick's experiences on the film via his audiobook. And I actually have a special guest going to jump in from her own words to our ears about her little experience on the movie. So all these things will be happening today. So we kind of do that for a couple of reasons. One, it gives you a chance to still go watch the film. I will say you're going to have to ask me for the site. I can share it with you that I saw it on, or you're going to have to buy the DVD on Amazon because I can't find it anywhere to stream. So don't expect a synopsis per se, like scene by scene, but we'll talk about certain scenes. Okay. Back to some of these user reviews. Viewers praise the performances of, we're going to get to them, Christine Lottie and Meg Tilly. The movie is described as a road trip film with elements of comedy, drama, and friendship. Absolutely. Many reviewers appreciate the film's themes of hope, struggle, faith, and finding one's place in life. And one of the many comments that came up, let's talk about it right now if you like, the cinematography. The scenery shots were quickly mentioned as a positive aspect of the film. So do you want to talk about any of the scenery shots that you enjoyed or stood out to you?
Was gorgeous because it's cross country, right? So it's a road trip movie, which I didn't realize that it was going to be that. It just showed the gorgeous landscape that is America, many of them, and including one particular scene that is the Northern Lights when they're in Alaska. Let's see. There's these two kids that have been kind of camping out on the land that Christine Lottie's character owns. They kind of develop into a little family. It's really adorable. But anyway, Meg Tilly's character is with one of the boys who she's teaching to read. And they're outside looking at the Northern Lights, and it's freaking gorgeous. It's where they see the Northern Lights. She talks about, it's about expectations and happiness, really. He's like, why doesn't she like it here? And Meg Tilly says something like, well, I guess it's different than she expected. And then he says, well, why do you like it? And she's like, because I didn't have any expectations.
By the way, the camper that they acquired from the character of 66, pretty cool that they were able to get that from her, eh? What a neat little gift that was.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well, eh?
Yeah.
An Airstream.
Oh, that's right. That's what they're called. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I do love how, again, spoiler, but I do love how they attached the camper to the house, because when they made the house at the end of the film, I was a little bit nervous. Like, that's not a very big home. But they added the Airstream next to the house. You got a whole like extra bit of house there ready to go next to the home. So they probably built like a little doorway where you could walk into the camper, and you could probably detach that little door from the home to the camper, so you could still drive off with the camper. That's probably a pretty good way of doing that. You'd have like an extra room basically in that house.
That's smart.
I mean, maybe that's even where they slept, was in the camper, but they lived in the home for eating, dining, and yeah. Now it's funny that you bring up the we call it Northern Lights. What's the official
Aurora Borealis. I've seen them in Iceland, but
well, it's funny that you bring this. We had in Canada just recently in May of 2024. We had all across Canada for 1 or 2 nights, huge sightings. Like people from my home city in BC, where some of this film was filmed, actually where Meg Tilly is from. She actually went to one of the. I didn't go to this high school, but she went to one of my local high schools growing up.
Really?
Yeah, Esquimalt High School, which I know very well. We used to play it all the time when I played rugby. I have a friend or two that actually went to that school that work in the Navy with me. But yeah, she's a resident of BC. She's part Canadian, but she was born in the U.S., but she currently lives in BC right now. She's
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. We'll talk about Meg Tilly. She'll be the last one we talk about. She's the most interesting person of this group of characters and actors. But anyways, throughout Canada, there was all these Northern Lights. But at the time, we were in Halifax, which was on the East Coast, like above New York City, and that even further east in Canada. And it was at my son's wedding. It was cloudy, overcast at the time, and we were stuck in a hotel. It was like the night before the wedding, so we missed the show. We just didn't see any of the Northern Lights. We were stuck indoors. / it was cloudy. We just missed all the lights, but we got to see them all on Facebook. So when I saw this scene, I was like, oh man, I forgot about this. Like a month and a half ago, all Canada was experiencing this.
That's funny because in May, the US, all these people from the Midwest, like places that normally wouldn't be able to see them, were posting it. And it's funny because I, at that time, was on a plane to Reykjavik where you can't see them at that time of year. Like it's the wrong time.
Oh, the
it's
irony.
Just,
You're going to Iceland, can't see them. That's funny. So here she is going out looking at them with the two Native Americans. That's what you guys call them, right? I never know what they call them for the States.
Yeah.
Is
Native Americans. Lottie's character, because in Alaska, I think sometimes they have different... Yeah, she says Eskimo, I think, right? She refers
to herself as part Eskimo. Her grandfather was, according to the film, Eskimo, which is, I don't know for you in the States, but Eskimo is a slander now.
Yeah.
Then, as a reward for my good behavior, I got some good news. I did. Somebody died. Anyway, I finally got my house back.
Native Alaskan land settlement, 1973?
Yeah, back then they were letting Native Alaskans buy shitty land cheap. I know, don't laugh. I'm part Eskimo. It's my grandfather on my mom's side. Oscar Tauck, Tauq.
Not a slander, but it's like calling an Asian person an Oriental. It's that same type of old school. We don't say that anymore, but they said it back then. It wasn't considered back then. It's like everything. Like words change over time and meanings change over time. So now we just say obviously Asian and Native American. In Canada, we call them First Nations people or Indigenous.
Indigenous. Yeah. Okay.
But Meg Tilly, I think she just had a baby prior to this film. So I think she was a nursing mother. 3 kids at this point.
What? She's pretty young.
She's 32 in the film.
Okay.
I mean, as an actress, in the film, she's 28, the character. But as an actress, she's 32. And it's funny, Christine Lahti is FortyTwo.
Playing 38.
Playing 38.
Yeah.
So give or take, that's about right. Again, I always love knowing the actor's age and the characters they play, or if we can age.
Did you like Christine Lahti? So it's Darlie.
We're going to get to her. We're going to get to her.
Okay.
I want to hear the dialogue that you're talking about. We're getting to the dialogue. Sorry.
Well, I just thought you were talking about the woman's figure, and she dresses in a way that shows her figure.
Yeah, she's an attractive woman herself. Absolutely. Not crazy about the hair.
Very 92.
Yeah, it's 92 hair. Well, again, Meg Tilly has fine hair that could pass today. It's weird. We talked about this again with the Old About last night, where Elizabeth Perkins had terrible hair, but she's an attractive woman. And Demi Moore had normalish hair that you could wear today. But then Christine Lahti her character is the hot older woman. She's got the spunk and fire and sassiness to her. So I think that was just literally a 92 haircut. That's all that was. Yeah. Wasn't too bad, but nobody would wear that today.
No, I actually thought it very well fit her character, like for the type of woman she was supposed to be at the time. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Now, is this where that dialogue comes out that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Is the lady gonna work with us anymore?
It's up to her, I guess.
How come she don't like it here?
I don't know. I guess she expected things to be different.
How come you like it?
I don't know. I guess I didn't expect anything.
Because that's exactly how you came into this film.
Yeah.
And that might be a part of the combination of this film. People were expecting a Thelma and Louise type film, didn't get it. Thus, they were disappointed. And you came in with no expectations, not even considering about the Thelma and Louise film. Just, hey, I'm going to watch a movie. And you quite enjoyed it.
Loved it. I'm shocked that it's more people haven't seen it. It's really good.
Well, the people that listen to this podcast, they're going to run out and they're going to watch it now because of us. We're spreading the word, Katie. We are spreading the word. And the reason why I also picked you for this episode was, again, for About Last Night, I admit I wanted a female perspective because we're talking about relationships. We're talking about boy-girl stuff, and I don't want to speak for the female side of things. I want to hear your perspective on the female side of things and how a woman might react to some of those characters and the way they were behaving. And that's kind of why I got you for this too. One, because of your Retro Made podcast and the things you enjoy, all things 80s and 90s. This is a 1992 film. So I thought, okay, great. I think she's going to enjoy the 92 film aspect of this film. And again, we're talking about there's 2 female leads. This is a female-led film. And let's be honest, in the 90s and 80s and 90s, sometimes even today, really, having an all-female-led cast, Thelma and Louise was unique that way to be so popular, but that was not common. In fact, a lot of that film did kind of, I wouldn't say relied on, but part of its box office success was it was directed by Ridley Scott. Was it Ridley or Tony? My apologies. It was.
I get them confused too. I'm not sure. I'm not.
Tony's passed away, and he was Top Gun. Because Tony Scott did like True Romance, for example.
Oh, one of my favorite movies of all time. So
it's Ridley. It is Ridley.
Okay.
Yeah. So the film was directed by Ridley Scott, who brought in that action kind of. How should I say this without sounding misogynistic? Because it's not my intent. But he directed 2 female leads, but it felt like a man movie. It felt like it felt like a guy film with 2 female leads.
It was adventure.
With the adventure, the action, of course, spoiler, them driving off the cliff at the end, all that stuff's like amped up adrenaline kind of rush stuff. And And whereas this film, yes, it's two female leads mismatched, not on the run, well, on the run from their life, so to speak, but it's a softer film in that sense. And I think people might have been put off just by the drama of it. Before we get into the actors, let's talk about the writer. Did you see who wrote the film?
Somebody Solomon, right? And
another Ed.
Ed, yes. Ed Solomon, right?
Ed Solomon, yes. And did you know what he wrote as well? His credits.
I looked briefly, but you tell me about it.
Oh, sure. Well, he is the writer and creator of the Bill and Ted movies.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Which seems very different.
Yeah. Well, that it is very different because he actually wrote his first two films were Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and then Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And then he wrote Leaving Normal.
Okay.
He went on to write some other kind of almost straight to video type stuff. Mom and Dad Save the World. Remember that one?
No.
Exactly. But he wrote Super Mario Brothers.
Never saw that.
It's not a very good Mario film. But he bounced back. The following film, Men in Black, he wrote.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. Again, this is far superior to any of those.
Oh, I'm not a big fan of Men in Black, but believe it or not, I thought it was kind of fun and unique at the time. But 27 years later, you watch it, and it's not that funny. It's actually not that clever.
You don't go for the writing. Like Bill and Ted, those movies, Men in Black, the writing isn't really what you're going for. So I think it's really interesting that he wrote this because it's really well done, I thought.
He also created and wrote Now You See Me 1 and 2, Charlie's Angels, the first film, and some other films. So he has had some success in writing films and has made a mark as a writer. I didn't see anywhere in my research, unless I even did like Ed Solomon, Leaving Normal interviews, nothing. I didn't see anything about what he drew from.
Okay.
You think about it, it's a man, and he would have been, this is 30 years ago, 32 years ago. So whatever age he is now, minus 32 years, he couldn't have been more than, he's 63 now. So he would have been 31 when he wrote this film. So what experiences does a 30-year-old bring about these characters in his life?
Especially female characters.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Wise beyond his years, very much so.
I guess so. You know who he married? He married John Cleese's daughter.
Okay.
His father-in-law for a time was John Cleese. That's all.
Okay.
That would have been interesting to have that as your father-in-law, Monty Python legend. But they divorced later. Yeah, interesting background on Ed Solomon. Of course, when I saw the name, it didn't mean anything to me, but interesting background on him. Now, did you want to speak to the plot or?
So it's really interesting. We open with two little girls. It's setting the stage for us to see this massive unstableness. They're constantly having to, because their mom must have lots of husbands or boyfriends and they have to run out. That
was not the father of the girls? You think that's just like a boyfriend, a temporary boyfriend?
I'm not entirely certain, but I think what we're meant to believe is that was not the first time it happened based on what they say. And then later when Marianne, when she says her last name, she goes through like 6 last names. So she's been married a couple times. And so has her mom. She's, so she's like, I don't know which name is actually my true name, really.
Hey, what's your last name anyhow?
Johnson. Well, that was Curtis. It was Trainer before that. And David Trainer, my first husband.
Okay.
But originally Shore.
Sure.
I was born Morrison, but we all took Shore when my mom remarried, which actually was Shoresky, but Step-Gramp wanted to be more American.
Darlie Peters, +1.
This is quite a clever scene delivered by Meg Tilly, talking about her family history but it's, again, that's what the writer would have brought to the table. So I'm curious what he maybe had friends like that or
maybe
something.
He grew up having to do that.
I wonder if that really is the case in his upbringing. I suspect maybe it was a family member, a friend maybe who had a friend that had, or a girlfriend who had 5 different last names. Like, what is your last name?
I did think it was clever because then, so it's 2 sisters. Marianne is one of them. So she goes on to basically follow in her mother's footsteps. She gets walked all over. She's married several times.
That's played by Meg Tilly.
Meg Tilly, yes. We kind of see that she, just on the whim of whatever man she's with, she drops everything and that's what her life is. Whereas the sister does the exact opposite. She, has a very stable life. She lives in Portland. They make a stop. Okay, so Meg Tilly, we see her on a bus She's very excited about this new husband she has, but then immediately we're like, oh shit, he beats her.
I mean, I like the alphabeticalness of it and everything. As a matter of fact, we could just make this a G shelf. I could put glasses and gloves and get grapes in the fridge and a gallon of goo.
What are you doing with my shit?
Oh, well, I thought it needed a bath, so I took it out and gave it a walk, and I thought I'd bathe it. Oh!
But what the hell are you yapping about? You got any idea what time it is? I mean, they're gonna be here at 8. Besides, shit's just shit. Don't need to change anything.
Before we get to that scene, I did want to talk about that opening sequence on the bus. At the beginning of the film, the young girls and Marianne tells her sister, like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay, in a very dreamlike state. And then we see this little sequence here, which kind of threw me off at first, about their little camper flying off into space, which with the title sequence Leaving Normal. So it's kind of a play on words, because we see the camper that the mother and the daughters are running away in, or whatever VW bug they're in, or whatever it is, taking off into space. And then the term Leaving Normal comes up, but Normal is an actual town's name, but it's also, we're leaving normal in the sense of, it's not normal for your car to go up into space, so we're leaving normal. I think that was a connection. I'm not sure if that.
Yeah, it's a clever title in that way. Multiple meanings.
Shut up and get the kids in the car.
Shut up and get off your ass.
So there's the parents of Friday. So that's what he says. Shut up and get the kids into the car, which that made me think that they were husband and wife, because it wasn't your kids.
Either way, she either previously or in the future has multiple boyfriends or husbands that they
right. I suspect they're probably rent hoppers, people who get a house, don't pay the rent, run away, go get another house, don't pay the rent. And I felt bad. I like being a parent. So I know this is a small little scene, but it always makes me feel like heartbroken to see kids crying. And I know it's all acting, of course, but this happens in life, where young children are unstable home environments. It breaks my heart, because the child did not ask to be brought into this world. And now they're in a world where it's painful and it's emotionally traumatizing, and they didn't ask for this. And these stupid parents have brought them in. Don't get me started on people that should not have kids. You should not have kids. I hate it.
100%.
So much.
Yeah.
And these poor girls are traumatized by these parents. They're fighting just in the next room. And you got the one sister, I think it's Emily, who is just crying on the couch saying, I don't want to leave anymore. I'm tired of all this. And Marianne, played by, of course, not Meg Tilly here, but her character is like, everything will be okay. Almost like this naive, dreamlike state of everything will be okay.
We're out of here.
I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to stop someplace.
I don't want to hear about it. Just get your stuff together.
No.
And that's the key there. I don't want to go anywhere anymore. I just want to stop at one place. Can we stop running away? So just like you're saying there, yes, when she becomes an adult, she marries, she settles down, she has a career, her husband has a career, she has kids, she's settled down, and she's found her place, so to speak. She's not moving anymore.
Oh, no. I want to stop someplace.
Come on, Marianne, let's go.
No.
So they're in the little VW. What do you call those? Is it a VW van? That's what they're called, or
VW bus? I think is what they're called.
Bus.
Yeah.
Right. Bus.
Don't worry, Emily. Everything's gonna work out fine. I know it is. Please leave me alone, Marianne.
So then Marianne turns, looks outside.
I know it is. I know it is. I know it is.
Repeating that mantra, I know it is. We cut to the shot of space, and there's Northern Lights there. I didn't catch that the first time.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah.
So VW bus is now driving towards the Northern Lights into space, and
in her imagination.
In her imagination, of course. And then the music kicks in, and Leaving Normal, I believe, comes up right after. Here you go. So, all right. When you first saw that, what did you think? Like, what am I getting myself into, maybe? Or
yeah, a little bit. I was like, is this like a fantasy adventure movie? But it's interesting now rewatching this little bit, because yes, throughout the whole movie, Meg Tilly has this almost like baby-like voice and just extreme positivity that annoys Darlie. But she does end up finding her place through a series of events and fights with Darlie, where she's broken down and she finally gets mad and has this like newfound decision-making ability that she didn't have throughout the whole film. Like towards the end, she realizes where she's supposed to be, and all of the events through her life got her there, coming back to this point now where she's like, I know it is. It's going to all work out. And it does for her.
It does. Now, it's an interesting character that we have with the Meg Tilly character because she was in the Army. So we're seeing the cut now here where she has her a gear or some sort of placard or tag with the U.S. Army on it, where she's changing her name here from Mrs. or whatever, private. She's a private. So she probably only served for a year to 3 years max. And she's changed it, I think, to Mrs. To show that she's now a civilian. And there is Marianne Trainer. That's one of her many last names, but now she's going to change it back to her either married name. Obviously a symbolic sign of her changing her name back. So it's funny. She just spent her time in the Army and she's going back to her second husband. We hear later in the film that she was married before. She had a first husband, got remarried, and then went to the Army.
Yeah, that bit was a little confusing because I sort of assumed she went into the Army before the first husband, but maybe it was in between. Yeah, you're right.
She probably she's 28 in the film.
27, I think she says.
Oh, 27. Okay. Yeah. And character sitting next to her on the bus ride is reading the Green Berets, kind of maybe to a nod to her military time. So there's a sequence here that I thought was interesting. I don't know if it reminds you of All About Last Night, the film we covered. Do you know what I'm getting to?
No.
So she's on this bus ride across America or whatever it is, and it's showing like she's in the same seat, but it's showing all these different characters next to her. An old lady reading a book, a baseball team, other people. It's just showing that she's on a long trip, but the people around her are on shorter trips and not with her the whole time. It shows the guy, of course, falling asleep on her, which is awkward. It actually kind of shows her character that she's too timid to even tell him to not sleep on him. She just almost allows it to happen. It's supposed to be comedic, but it actually is kind of sad that she can't say, hey, dude, don't sleep on me. I'm sure, would you let a guy sleep on you?
I have a hard time, and this is a problem why women get in danger a lot, is because we were brought up, at least older generations, to be nice over being safe.
Or assertive.
Yeah.
Now, here's the sequence. Well, I'll play a little bit of it, but she's talking about herself, talking about life. I'll say what's happening for audio listeners. She is telling a story, and the characters will change throughout the story, but her monologue doesn't stop and doesn't change. If you were to hear it audibly, it just sounds like she's saying one story to one person, but she's saying it to multiple people. So the editing is such that the people keep changing to her left, our right as a viewer. They keep changing, but the story never misses a beat. It continues to indicate she's telling the same story to multiple people. Do you remember what happened All About Last Night at the beginning of that film?
Jim Belushi's character is talking about his escapades the night before or whatever. Is that what you're getting at?
That's right. So he's telling the story to Rob Lowe's character at the beginning of that film about his escapades the night previous, about All About Last Night previous. Like they're on the subway, then they're walking down the street, then they're at the bar.
Good catch, Brian. It's a Zwick thing.
Yeah, it might be a Zwick thing because the scenes have changed, but the story continues with one complete monologue. So in that one, it's kind of reversed because we're led to believe that Jim's character stops talking and then picks up where he left off in the story at a new scene. But that doesn't make sense because like nobody talks that way. I'm not going to tell you a story on the subway. Wait till we walk off the subway, get to the bar, continue exactly where we left off. It's a cleverly tricky way of filming because it shows all these different scenes with the same story. But here we have kind of reverse. Is the scenes is one scene, but the people change. Vice the scenery changing, but they have the same story going throughout. So we'll hear a little bit of it. If you're watching those YouTube, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I think he's Mr. Strong Guy, but he's not. He's actually, he's really sad. And it's other things too, besides, like, his sense of humor. I think it's really unusual, when you meet somebody and they just, I don't know, they just really make you smile, and sometimes you aren't even sure why. Or have you ever wanted to go someplace or do something?
Anyway, so there's 4 different people there sitting next to her for our audio listeners that have changed while her story is the same. Let's get into now some of the other side characters that we had. Did you catch? I actually told you to look for a Rocky actor or actress. Did you catch who it was? And I also interviewed this person on my Rocky podcast. Did you catch the person?
I didn't, but the only one I could think of was possibly one of the dancer girls in Rocky 3. because you interviewed her.
Hilarious. When I show you, you're going to be like, oh, I can't believe I missed that.
Oh, shoot. Oh, the nurse.
I'm actually shaking a little bit here.
You abandoned your daughter.
That's Rutania Alda. I interviewed her. She's the one that told Rocky that Adrian's lost a lot of blood and she's in a coma in Rocky 2.
Oh, my God. I did miss it. Dang it.
Yeah. Do you recognize her voice now?
Yeah. That's awesome. Good catch, Ryan.
Well, the moment I saw her, I knew who she was right away. She also started with Burt Young in Amityville Horror Part 2.
She plays the same character, basically.
I know. That's what's crazy. She literally sounds like the same nurse. She does the nurse delivery lines the same way.
With judgment, like both with judgment, like, you shitty person.
Due to the strenuous amount of work, your wife is in a coma due to the loss of blood. So she delivers those lines to Rocky and Paulie in Rocky Part 2. That was 1979. So 13 years later, she looks pretty good for 13 years later.
She does, yeah.
This is her again playing the nurse. You know what? I'm going to go with Rocky crossover. It's the same character, but she's moved to Alaska.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Let's go with it because she's got the same job. Her character's moved to Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I am.
So this is actually a big scene here. What we have here, of course, is they're in Alaska. They made the road trip up to Alaska. Christine Lattis, what's her name? Darla?
Darlie?
Before we get to it, let's actually get to the scene. I don't want to spoil it. We'll go back there. When she reveals, when they have that standoff with each other.
That's a great scene, yeah.
It's an incredible scene.
They one up each other's crappiness as a person,
That's right.
sort of.
Let's play that right here.
You are the sappiest goddamn person I have ever met in my life.
I'm not, actually.
You are.
No, actually, I'm very cold.
Yeah, right.
No, it's true. I'm serious. I must be something. I met thousands of people in my life. Not one of them stuck.
So, that's better than me. They stick all over me, and I'm always pulling them off, like flies.
Yeah, well, I've said till death do us part 2 times already.
Hey, I don't think I'm ever going to be saying it, okay?
I've never slept with anyone I was certain I loved.
So, I don't think I've slept with anybody I was certain I liked.
I'm not even sure if I love anything. I'm not even sure if I like things.
Well, I know for sure that I don't love anything. How about that?
Darling, I've done horrible things.
Oh, yeah? Why don't you tell me about it?
Well, I cheated on Curtis once before I moved in with him.
Well, the last thing I said to my father was fuck off.
Yeah? Well, I wish my sister would die.
Yeah? Well, I split on my kid when she was 2 days old. Ding! I win.
All right. Powerful scene. What did you think of that scene?
It was a powerful scene, but it was a necessary because they get so close. I guess the thing that I don't know, their friendship that has built over a very short period of time they've gone through a lot together. They have all these fights together, but they're both saying they don't really love anyone but they have now this newfound family in each other and they truly do care for each other. It's the most endearing thing. I mean, really, I'm not like a sappy movie person, but I was like, I believed the friendship between these two. And I think that got them there. They needed to have it out.
What we didn't see, if you weren't watching this on YouTube, folks, was Meg Tilly's character when she heard that, because she just finished saying, I wish my sister would die. And I don't know if she really, really felt that, but she doesn't really have any love lost probably for her sister enough to even say that jokingly. But when she hears that Darlie has abandoned her newborn after 2 days, she was really stung by that. Why do you think Marianne was stung so much by that revelation?
She's putting herself in the position of the child, right? Like she had such an unstable environment and feels, kind of a little bit abandoned herself. Maybe. What do you think?
That is an interesting way of putting it. We know that her and her mother don't seem to be close anymore. There's no mention of the parents in their adult life, is there, that you recall? Was there any mention? Okay. She did go back to see her sister. Now, that was an interesting visit.
Noticed that she's so prim and proper. She's the opposite full on opposite of Meg Tilly's character. And they visit and there's kids. And Darlie, I could totally relate to Darlie because she's totally, she cannot relate to kids. She's not good with kids. She's just like, oh, whatever, who cares? Life sucks. You'll shut up, kids. Get out of my way.
Is that when they were doing the bedtime reading part?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night.
Marshall gets Spider-Man.
Nope. Tonight you get Spider-Man. Come
I
on.
don't want Spider-Man.
Okay. Come on, kid. You're being evicted.
No!
Shit.
You just swore.
No, I didn't.
Did you?
Oh, yeah? What'd I say?
Shit. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right. And for that kid, no story. No, the forest burned down, so the trappers sold him to the zoo.
No.
Yes, Sarah, I'm telling you, life can suck. See, then these horrible children came, and they fed him all this candy, and his arteries hardened, and, well, after that, it's just not a pretty picture. Okay, you, Spider-Man, and I'm going to go have a cigarette.
Cigarettes are bad.
No, Sarah, cigarettes are good. And you know something, when you grow up, you should smoke. Good cigarettes.
Yeah, that is a fun scene, a sequence, just to show this, I'd say, rough exterior with Darlie, but she can't be bothered by children. And like I said, not everyone should have kids. But ironically, she did have a kid, and she abandoned the kid. And as terrible as that sounds, and I don't even mean to sound this way myself, but
probably the best thing she did.
It might have been the best thing for the kid. And that was an interesting side story that we got throughout the film after the revelation that she has possibly an adult child out there. If you were a betting person before the film was over, did you honestly believe we were going to see the adult version of the kid at some point in Alaska?
Yes. Did you?
Yes, I did too. And I applaud the writer, Ed, not showing it.
Me too. Oh my God. I actually put a note. Like they kept saying the odds of this, they kept building it up. Like, this is extremely unlikely because you can essentially, the daughter would be 18 now. So if they both write into this address, they'd be connected, but that rarely happens. But I thought they're building it up so much that that's going to be the end. And I loved that we didn't get it. She just has hope for her.
And I think that's the idea was, and this was done by, I would say, a smart writer, by not showing the adult daughter. I want to hear the dialogue from that nurse, the one I interviewed. She was a lovely woman, by the way, Britannia Alda, but she explains here to Darlie. So let's hear that interaction here. So they've gone to the hospital where the baby was born. It's kind of funny. Like, hey, I left my kid here 18 years ago. Is she still here?
She's still, do you know who adopted her?
Yeah.
I left my daughter in postpartum.
And when was that?
Oh, about 18 years ago. You think she might still be here?
Let's see.
I don't understand. You left your daughter.
Circumstances were such that she...
Yeah, I ditched her. Here. This isn't real easy for me, okay? Oh, look, I'm actually shaking a little bit here.
You abandoned your daughter.
Nurse Ratchet over here.
She was wondering. I mean, we were wondering if there's any way to find out any information at all. Like if she's okay. If she was adopted. What kind of family. Anything.
I'm sorry, those records are not public domain. And even if they were, by abandoning the child, she's forfeited any rights she may have had to them in the first place. There is an address she could write to try and make contact, but the daughter would have to write as well independently. And the chances of that happening, are both of them doing so? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
This is really getting stupid, Mary.
And then, of course, she revisits when she has her character kind of turn around at the end of the film that she decides to stay in Alaska with, Marianne, that they decide to make this life together. She goes back to the hospital, and I love even then she just says, I know.
Oh, can I help you?
Hi.
Hello.
You mentioned an address that you can write to if, where if by some chance your kid happens to write to, there's Well, a possibility.
You know, the odds of this are very slim. About 10,000 to 1.
I know. Thank you.
If you want to fill that out here, I'll be happy to mail it for you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That would be great.
But the reason why I think that happens, though, Katie, that she does go back to bringing the paperwork to make that effort. And it's nice. The nurse actually says, if you fill it out here, I'll send it for you.
She came around to her.
Yeah. She was also kind to her, saying, you know what, you made a mistake or whatever, as she saw it, but you're willing to rectify that. She did it for herself. Even if she never sees her adult daughter at this point ever in her life again, she knows that she's done her part in the universe of trying to make it right, to connect. So that's just showing you where her heart and head is now, that she's willing to forgive herself and she's willing to move on from that herself. Even if her daughter never does or looks for her, she knows I've put that olive branch out into the universe.
She can be at peace with it.
That's right.
That's a good insight, Ryan, too, because what I got from the scene you just showed was this is the first time she's confronting this, like coming to grips with that she did this, because she does have, as a defense mechanism, this tough exterior. And she's like, oh my God, I did that. Like, she's admitting it to herself, like getting it all out there. And then, yeah, she can be at peace with it later.
Now, we've talked a little bit about Christine Lahti. Do you know who she was or anything about her before you saw the film? And if so, what was it?
She's one of those people that you're like, oh, yeah, I know her, but you can't really name a bunch of stuff she's in. But most recently, I think it's on Netflix, the show called Evil, where she plays one of the main characters' mom.
Took it out of, that was mine.
Yeah.
Have you watched that show?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then I think
she's great in that. That's the only thing I really knew her from. Sorry, not the.
No, that's there was a few other things. She must be most known for Chicago Hope, but I never watched that show.
She's a face that you've seen before.
SVU. I recognized her from that. She played an ADA in Law and Order SVU for a while, but she's so recognizable.
She had a breakthrough film role with Al Pacino in Justice for All in 1979, so she would have been 29 at that time. She was born in 1950. She looks lovely today, even as a 70-plus-year-old woman in that show Evil. She looks great.
I plays the same character in this.
I was just going to say, well, that's funny. You're right. She does play the same type of character, but the more I've seen movies, and I'm sure you're the same way, and this is especially regarding Meg Tilly, I'm going to show you a clip later, spoiler alert, with her. I think a lot of actors, it's just easier to be a little bit of yourself in films. Not to say if you're playing a killer that you're a killer or anything like that, but I think your personality or the way you just speak and are, it's just easier to kind of be that person with the lines you're given. Christine Lahti, I'm sure she's a lovely, wonderful person, but there must be a part of her that can kind of play that role that we see in this film. And then, yeah, you're right. She plays that same type of, it's almost like that character is now in Evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's still very sexual and tough exterior, no nonsense.
So like you said, she played Dr. Kate Austin in the Chicago Hope. She was one of the main cast role there for 5 years. That's a big moment for her. You talked about the recurring roles she had in Law and Order. She actually got an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Swing Shift in 1984.
Oh, which, by the way, thank you for the setup there.
Oh, sure, please.
That is one of the final episodes of season 1 for Retromade, because that is a Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn movie.
Have you seen the film yet?
No.
So you get to watch Christine Lahti again?
Yeah.
Academy Award nominated role. So I look forward to hearing the review on that. That's awesome. There was a couple side characters that were interesting. What did you think of
66? Is that where you're going?
Oh, I didn't have that one yet.
Oh.
We had the guy named Lenny Van Dolen. He was the one that played Marianne's love interest. I think he was the nephew to the truck driver. Remember the older truck driver, and he was the younger one reading the Grapes of Wrath in the rig.
Oh,
there?
Harry, yes.
The actor's name is Lenny Van Dolen. Interesting career. He had his film debut in Tender Mercies with Robert Duvall, but he's best known for playing the agoraphobic, orchid-growing character Harold Smith in David Lynch's series Twin Peaks.
Oh, he looked familiar. He's got his eyes are so different than anyone else's eyes.
You know what's interesting too is he also had roles in another Ed Zwick project, 30-something, the TV series. So that's where you have, actor and directors getting along and, hey, do you want to come do this show with me? Unfortunately, it has since passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The cause of death was not revealed, but he was survived by wife and children. Yeah, he passed away 2022, just a couple of years ago, at the age of 63.
Okay.
They said that after a long illness that's all that the family revealed was a long illness. Do you have any theories why people don't say why you died? To me, by not saying it, it almost, I don't know. Like if I died of a heart attack, just tell people I died of a heart attack. If I died of leukemia or cancer, it's okay. Just say like cancer got me.
Substance abuse or something, maybe.
That's what I mean. The long illness could be an illness. The illness could be, is it alcohol abuse? Because it was 63, which isn't old.
Liver cirrhosis, or that doesn't put them in a good light.
When you don't say what it was, it leaves it up for interpretation, which always leads to the negative. Because we have to assume, he was addicted to acetaminophen or something and overdosed on it. Like we don't know, so it's a long illness that he's. No, we wish him and his family all the best. It's just a side note when I see that stuff. That's all I'm saying. Mary Ann's character falls in love with him. They have a little romance, as you say. But again, a lesser film, we would have seen them at the end of the film all together, happily ever after. Do you like how their characters kind of
loved it? Because it was like the first time he comes for her. They knew each other for a day or two, maybe.
Yep, sure.
And he knew her last name. He knew her name, and then her last name was Johnson, an extremely common name, and that she was from Wyoming. So he sent someone named Johnson in every Mary Ann Johnson in Wyoming. So 300 people, a letter trying to get to her. And then they kind of write back and forth. This seemed very romantic comedy-esque to me because I'm like, who would do that? Would you do that?
Yes.
You would? Okay.
Absolutely. Back when I was a teenager, I think I mentioned before, I was a hopeless romantic and I would crush hard on girls that I was crushing hard on, whoever it was. But I actually wrote letters. That was common enough for me that I've written letters to girls. And the whole excitement of receiving the letter back was a real thing that I experienced at the young and in this time in the 90s. So this was 92. So definitely handwriting letters. Tracking down somebody pre-social media, that's how you would have to do it. You would have to say, hey, her name was Mary Ann Johnson. She lived in this geographical area. I'm going to send a letter to every Mary Ann Johnson. I love how within the letters, it says, hey, if you're not the Mary Ann Johnson that met me at that truck stop, stop reading from this point on. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah. And then he shows up at her doorstep and basically is like, come with me. I'm on the road. And her old self would have immediately done that, given up everything. And she said, no, I'll still write to you. I like you and we can still have a correspondence, but this is my place here now.
I do like when he first shows up at the doorstep. The scene just previous is when her and her character, Mary Ann and Darlie have that big fight. Darlie's like, I'm out of here, which is weird because it's getting near the end of the film. Like, how are they going to resolve this? So Darlie leaves. So she's just had her best friend leave her. And she's sitting on her bed, like trying to recoup from that. And she hears a vehicle pull up. She's like, who can this be now?
Well, she hopes it's Darlie coming back.
We thought it was Darlie. As viewers, we thought the car had come back.
And that's what she's hoping for.
Surprise!
And it's great because unbeknownst to me, she just had this big falling out with her best friend. And he's like, hey, I'm surprised you. And then she breaks down. And the acting here by Meg is really well done to be able to play this character that she does. This, how would I describe it? Emotionally not quite stable yet person. She's getting there, but she's been through so much in her young life. And here she is seeing this guy that she's been dreaming of seeing. So she's conflicted because she just said goodbye to her best friend and she sees it. Now this guy shows up.
Well, I got your letter. Did I come at a bad time?
She shakes her head and starts crying.
It's okay. It's okay. I can come back in a few months. You know, it's only a couple 100 miles out of the way. 1,000 tops.
1,000 tops. Anyway, so that was cute. Then, of course, they talk and they figure it out. And the scene later that you're saying that, she goes, you know what? I need to be here. I'm happy here. So we're seeing her growth now that she goes, I found my home. I want to build a life here. However, come back. I'll be here.
Yeah, she's able to set boundaries now. Like she's grown so much as a person.
A great way of saying an emotional boundary she has set up. Absolutely. Oh, do you want to talk about 66, the actress that played 66? Or your feelings on her?
Oh, she's super recognizable. She's been in everything. She's the kind of a heavier, redheaded, chubby-cheeked gal that's been in tons of stuff. Let's see. She was in Days of Our Lives for a long time, but I never watched that.
Right.
I immediately recognized her from an episode of Roseanne.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
She plays like this girl. She works at a hardware store and Dan has dreams about her. Like she was in Growing Pains, like older things, Roseanne.
Yeah, she is somebody I recognize, but I wouldn't be able to tell you where from. Just probably the same thing that you're going through, those older sitcoms, guest appearances.
She had a recurring role on Step by Step as Suzanne Summers' sister.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Step by Step. I forgot about that show. That's funny. Rest in peace to her, Suzanne Summers.
Oh, yeah.
Goddamn tablecloth over you.
Hi, excuse me. Okay, have a Jell-O? I have one fish special. Yep. I have 2 vegetable plates.
Thank you.
I'm sorry they did not have the dessert item that you requested.
What? No flan?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Side note, it was an ongoing joke throughout the film regarding the flan, an ongoing little side story line, and the mugs.
Yes.
Excuse me, am I reading that correctly?
Yes, ma'am, my name is indeed 66. Well, actually, the Christian name is Cecilia, the diminutive of which is Cece. Oh, which I sign as follows. Oh, hence the name. Of course, you know juveniles. In my youth, I was often derogatorily referred to as 69. Ha ha, thank you very much. Or most deleteriously as 266.
Why?
Because the human animal is capable of untold cruelty.
Oh, 266.
Sorry. She's heavy.
Why she's heavier, but that again, that's what we're hearing in the audience. We can't help but think it's kind of funny. It's cruel, but kids are cruel. That's what she's saying because little humans are the worst. Yes.
I liked the scene where essentially the 3 of them go on a road trip. They leave. The older man, Leon, has paid Darlie for sex, but then they run out on them. Apparently they don't pay for their dinner. So this waitress gets fired and they go on this trip. They go to a club and she's, again, really positive. She's like, I believe there's somebody out there for me. Right. I believe in true love. But then, everybody doesn't want to dance with her. So Darlie obviously thinks there's no such thing as true love. And then they talk about this is what we've evolved into. And
now I shall return to my search for true love.
True love doesn't exist. People just wake up and they get tired of putting on last night's clothes, and so they settle.
It has to exist.
No.
Otherwise, why would people spend so much time looking for it?
It's just biology, that somehow the species was worried it would die out, and so it created, I don't know, what's the scientific word for horniness?
Concupiscence, a noun. Lust, strong sexual appetites, although what you attribute to the species, I attribute to God.
Biology, God, whatever. It all boils down to the same thing. Now we all have babies and the crap starts all over again.
Yeah. And then they say they're like a little bit more about this is what we've evolved into.
It is so weird to me after millions of years. This is what we've evolved into.
All this hullabaloo simply to perpetuate a race of confused and frightened beings.
Yeah, that's good. Very well written. It's very that's kind of writing you almost here again today. This would have been uncommon back then in the 90s. You heard this.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what term the writing is, but just people don't really speak this way, but they make it seem like they do. Each line is almost like a Twitter feed. If that makes sense. Very cleverly said and well written. And they're all sort of listening to each other, but they're all expounding on the interest.
Their own view on things.
And I love that line by Marianne McTilly gives us where she just said, evolution has brought us here to this club, dancing, drinking. Like it is just that evolution. The human species got where it got to at this point where I like that idea. Like here we are now from discovering fire to cooking our meat. that were now at a bar drinking and smoking and picking up guys and dancing with. It is an interesting journey that humans didn't have clubs. There was a time that humans didn't have clubs to go pick up people, but that's what we've evolved. Now we have screen time and stuff. So it is interesting how we have evolved as humans.
66 is like, yeah, we've just perpetuated a race of people who are confused and don't know how to do anything. It's interesting.
It's true. It is very true. Okay. What are your thoughts on Meg Tilly? Well, how do you think she was in the film as an actress and character?
Well, Meg Tilly is the MVP of this movie, in my opinion. She is one of those people you're like, yeah, Meg Tilly. But it's surprising that she didn't have a bigger career. She's in a lot of things. I watched her in Bomb Girls. Did you see that series?
It's funny they bring that up. No, my wife did, though. It's a Canadian show.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's just it. I mean, she has it could almost be annoying. If I saw her more, the way she speaks, there's a specific way that she speaks I can't describe very well.
From what I understand with my research regarding Meg Tilly, she's been through some stuff. I think her childhood wasn't easy. Her stepfather was abusive. I don't think she has a very good relationship with her mother. So I think sometimes when people go through hard times young, they can sort of be trapped a little bit in that psyche. So she has a childlike voice or a childlike likeness to her. And I think she really taps into that. Not, I would say naivety, but innocence and youngness with the character in this film. So I wondered how much of it is Meg. She's acting the character, but what she's drawing from in that, wonderment and just, the way she kind of breaks down like a child and not throws tantrums, but an emotional breakdown. It's very childlike. She actually does a sort of a podcast right now on YouTube.
Oh,
so she's 63 now. So I'm going to show you the video of her. So she's going to look much older because this is now 32 years later. This is a fairly recent video, and it's called Tea Time with Meg Tilly or whatever. It's called Tea Time.
Okay.
And it's really weird because the concept of the show is people write into her and she drinks tea. She says what the tea is, and she's cozying up with her tea. And she's always smiling, very positive. And I think she has been through, again, some stuff. Side note, one of her kids, I don't know if it was the kid during the film, but one of her love child kids was from Colin Firth, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I did not know that.
She got a son with Colin. People will write into the show, whether it's they write in or she takes the comments from wherever. She reads them from her notebook, which I found interesting on her podcast. So I think she handwrites the questions to read. It looks like she's reading them from a book that you would write in. Now, maybe she printed them off and glued them into the book to read to make it look like she wrote them. But something tells me, I think she wrote the questions in her journal that she's reading to the audience. So, and she does talk about her career. Like if you go to her YouTube page, there are Jack Nicholson or something, things that she's experienced while she's been in Hollywood. She did take a break from Hollywood. I'm going to show you the clip right away, cold of her starting this initial podcast. People ask her, what was something that was cozy about XYZ? So that's what it is. It's getting cozy with Meg Tilly. Wear pajamas, drink some tea. So it's always very positive and cozy.
Okay.
But you'll see how she talks and how she is, and think of how she is in real life here. And then her character 32 years previous. You'll be like, oh, it's almost the same person.
Hi, Tea Timers. I hope you had a good weekend. So I'm drinking Lovely Darjeeling. It's not called Lovely Darjeeling. I just am calling it a Lovely Darjeeling with a little bit of milk. Oh, it's nice and warm. So let's see. What did I have here? I'm gonna get my thing. Oh. Okay, so here's something that's kind of exciting. Well, it's exciting to me. We have now Tea Timers in US, Canada, the UK, Finland, Netherlands, Australia, Japan, Spain, Ireland, and Russia. I can't believe it. We're going to do this little tea time thing, and I didn't know if anybody's going to watch other than my hubby, but this is so cool. So thank you and welcome all you guys from all around the world. Very exciting. Let's see, what else? Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's that first clip. Initial thoughts on just how she is.
I can't watch that. Right?
I've had time to process this. I've had to edit the video and things like that, and so I've seen this. I'm very familiar with it.
Can you imagine being married to her? I can't with the voice.
I don't know how much of the character. I mean, she's sweet and adorable in the film. Don't get me wrong, but isn't that Marianne?
It is, and it's also like a little like, I don't know if lispy is the right. It's childlike, but then there's also a specific way that she speaks. And I think she's also really known for being in The Big Chill, which I've seen. I just can't recall anything from it.
I have to see it again. It's been so long, but that was one of her bigger films.
Yeah.
Oh, she's won some awards too, by the way. Sorry, continue.
She was nominated for an Oscar.
She earned a Golden Globe for her performance in Agnes of God in 1985, so 7 years previous to this film. So she would have been 25 at that time. And she also earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. So both her and Christine came into this film as Academy Award nominees in their own right.
Wow. They were good. Yeah. I mean, they both were phenomenal. The emotional acting in this. And I enjoy Meg Tilly, but I think in small doses. And maybe that's why
Okay. So the reason why this clip came up in my YouTube search, I didn't actually Google like Meg Tilly. I was Googling like trying to get at what I could behind the scenes stuff. This was a very hard film to get any kind of behind the scenes anything, but this video of course came up in my search because she talks about her time on the film. So people write in, so she's reading it from that book. I saw see that book. She's reading from the book. So did she print them off and put them in the book? It's odd to me because she's looking like I don't know, like it's almost like she's reading letters from readers from her notebook. It's an odd like I don't know what she's trying to tell us. Does she write them in her book or does she print them off on a printer and put them in her book? These aren't handwritten stuff. This is all via social media, is my guess. Like they don't have her personal address.
I would love to hear some stories from Leaving Normal. That film got me through a tough year, my first away from home, and holds a very dear place in my heart.
Great question. And like I said, a lot of people love that film. She doesn't have a lot to say. Here's the first thing she says about the film.
But let's see, cozy, something cozy.
So right away, something cozy. So because the whole idea of her show, and by the way, to her left and our right are books. She's an author. Those are her books that she's written.
Oh, yeah.
So she's also an author. Something cozy. She's saying something cozy. Okay.
About Leaving Normal. There are a couple things that weren't cozy about it. I wasn't crazy about the director. He was not one of my favorites.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's all she'll say. I want to know what happened. I know we're not, like Ed in his book, he talked about his time with Matthew Broderick. And it's okay to say, like he said in his book that, I've forgiven him. Like we've moved on and I forgive him. But to tell my story, I have to talk about what Matthew put me through. I don't know if you heard that episode or if you
I certainly did.
Did you know any of that about Matthew?
No, but it doesn't. I mean, I knew about the accident.
But what I liked about what Ed was saying, I don't know if I shared that part in the clips of the episode, but the idea being that, hey, I've moved past it. I've forgiven him. We've talked about it, but this is what happened. This is the journey. That's what I would want to ask Meg is like, okay, you've forgiven him. I'm sure Ed has forgiven you if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, but I would be curious to see what it is about Ed that didn't register with you. But that's all we got from her. She wasn't crazy about Ed.
Well, and it's interesting because she's short with it. And didn't you say Ed was too? So it's interesting.
So that's her not so cozy.
You know who was cozy is Ed Solomon, the writer. He was super cozy and we were friends. So that really helped a lot. And also I had my baby with me, Will, and my daughter and son came to visit, but they had to go to school too. So somebody was taking care of them. After that movie was when I decided to work as much as I could for a year, save up as much money, and step away from acting because when I brought my kids, their friends became friends with other people and they came back home and it was sad. So
right there. So it was actually after that film that she semi-retired from acting.
Well, she said, I decided I will work for a year or so, get as much in as I can, and then take a break. And she did because her credits, there's like a few in 93, 94, and 95. And then the next thing isn't until 2010.
Yes. So she took time off for her family. To her own credit, that was a purposeful choice. Roles would have come her way regardless. She would always get acting gigs. She was well received enough as an actress. Yeah, so she stepped down. She semi-retired from acting. She came back for that brief stint on the Bomb Girls TV show for a few seasons, but she hasn't really done anything since. So to her own credit, she was true to herself. She raised her family, raised her kids. That's what I think she wants some stability for her family. She authored some books. But she does share one story about the behind the scenes I thought was interesting.
We shot in lots of different places. And the lovely thing about it was in BC, which was one of the advantages to it. But we also shot in Alberta and Alaska. And when we went to Alberta, and we shot the scene where my character, it's terrible, I can't remember her name. Once I finish a thing, everything goes out of my head. But I do remember certain things. So we were shooting the scene where her husband had hit her and she decided to leave for the first time at the bus station. And what you don't know when you look at that, because I was wearing shorts. I was wearing shorts and a kind of green jacket, and that's where
I went back and checked. She was wearing pants, but that's okay. It was 30 years ago. She was wearing pants, but yeah.
I first meet Christina Lottie's character. It started to snow. It was the middle of the summer, and we were shooting, and it was night, and all of a sudden, this snowstorm comes whipping in, and we're like so cold, and it comes whipping in, and there's snow all over. So what the crew had to do is I had like a big coat in between takes, right? And they had to take these blowers and heat things and melt the snow wherever you could see because there was snow. And then it would be time to shoot. And whoosh, they'd whip my coat off and I'd sit down, and I had to have, before I would shoot, I had to have cold, like ice in my mouth, because otherwise big puffs would come out and then I'd have to spit out, which would make you cold. And then you'd have to just make your whole body feel like you were on a warm, balmy beach so it would stop shaking. And you just have to like fill yourself and your body with heat and then do the lines. And then the minute the scene was over, whoosh, back on goes the coat, and you're so cold. And they had those warm hand warmers in the pockets and everything like that. It was really cold.
So she did share another story afterwards, which another one of her cozy moments was she or the crew, they were next to like some sort of like little restaurant or whatever, and they served this delicious pie, and she loved the pie. It was the highlight for her. She said that often when she does films, it's not about the actors or directors that she works with that she enjoys so much as just where she is, the people. I get that from her. It's more about the experience of where they are, not just like I'm with Jack Nicholson or whoever, because she worked on a movie with Jack Nicholson called The Two Jakes, which was the sequel to Chinatown. So yeah. So she's done some big roles, but she said that she just likes the smaller stuff that's around her. She enjoys those sort of things. There's a delicious pie that she was enjoying on a daily basis, and she wanted to ask the baker, how do you make this crust so good? And she says, I finally worked up the courage, because you know how she is. You can kind of sense. She goes, I finally worked up the courage to go ask them, this is some secret family recipe. Are they going to share it with me? And it turned out it was actually just the store-bought stuff, Tenderflake, that you can make. It's called, I think it's called Tenderflake. So they just use it's in a can. So it's ready to go pie crust. And she goes, that's what I've been using ever since, Tenderflake.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, anyways. Are you ready for Ed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see what he had to say about this film.
I was on top of the world. Glory had won 3 Oscars. 30-something was still piling up Emmy wins. I was wined, dined, and opined. The phone rang constantly. Offers abounded. What could possibly go wrong? The answer? Everything.
Rightfully so. After Glory, Katie, he's on cloud 9. That movie was incredible. I mean, do you like that movie, Glory? Do you agree that was an incredible film?
Yes, I haven't seen it in 30 years, but or listening to your podcast kind of reminded me about it. And I mean, what a cast too.
Listless and lost, I went into therapy and discovered I was recklessly in pursuit of success at the expense of all else. I was determined to change, to seek meaning in my work. And then Ridley Scott sent me a script. It was called Thelma and Louise, a lively, subversive take on women's rage and revenge written by Callie Curry. I liked it and discussed it with my therapist. Is this the kind of story you want to tell? He asked. I waffled. It's wildly entertaining, I said, but does it have depth? He did what all shrinks do when the patient poses a rhetorical question. Nothing. I passed.
So what do you think of that? He had a chance to direct that before Ridley.
Is he going into like, this was my Thelma and Louise? Like I did something similar to it?
It's one of those things where in Hollywood this happens a lot, where 2 films seem to be sort of the same.
Similar, yeah.
It's in the zeitgeist. You know, we had Bugs and Ant Life. We had Deep Impact and Armageddon. Like there's films that seem to kind of like, why are they the same? I think what happens is a script will go out there and there's some scuttlebutt. Hey, did you hear about that Holocaust script that's going around? Holocaust story. That's a good idea. Let me do, you know, and then all of a sudden you have The Pianist and Boy in the Striped Pajamas or whatever. Like you have these two different Holocaust stories that are out there around the same time because it's in the zeitgeist to share this type of story. So you have these two female-led stories. Now, I'm not to say Ed did this because it's vastly different to some degree. I guess in Ed's life, he heard about the Thelma Louise script first and said, nah, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't do this. It's maybe it's not intelligent enough the way Glory was, as he maybe felt about it. But I don't know. He didn't say why he turned it down. He just said, I passed.
What kind of is a little bothersome to me is that he's, you know, hindsight's 2020. And so he was like, oh, this was like a really successful, very popular film. And oh, dang it, why didn't I do it? And the one that I did do that was sort of similar didn't perform well. And so I don't know. I don't like that just because this is a really good movie. It didn't make money. Doesn't mean it's not a good movie.
No, I agree.
Not long after passing to Ridley Scott, Sidney Pollack sent me a new script he had developed to produce. A charming tale of two women in search of themselves by Ed Solomon, writer of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. A gentle and witty road movie where the journey is the destination. Leaving Normal was a story of female bonding. We'll get two amazing actresses, said Sidney. We sent it to Cher, who loved it. Then to Holly Hunter, who loved Cher. Then to the studio, who loved Cher, Holly, Sidney, me, and the script.
Okay, so there's your initial cast. What do you think that would have been, like a Holly Hunter Cher film? I think it would have been bigger. Might have been a bigger draw. Cher's a pretty big draw back and then, even, you know.
And
90s.
Holly Hunter in the early 90s was kind of a big deal.
So obviously Holly would have played the Meg Tilly character. Cher would have played the.
It's interesting. They work like it does work. I can see them. Yeah,
it totally works. And nothing against Meg and Christine, nothing at all. But what an interesting film that would have been to see.
Everybody loved everybody. A week later, Cher dropped out.
I wonder why. Again, we don't know why.
What was she doing at the time?
If you believe in love.
That was way later.
Okay.
But yeah.
Sorry.
Explanation given.
See.
We'd had what I thought was a convivial dinner. She showed me her Malibu mansion. I laughed at her anecdotes. Was it a mistake to say I'd love Sonny and Cher while in middle school?
So,
maybe.
I mean, joke about her age or whatever,
Yeah.
But how old was she in 92? So Cher was 46 at that time, so just a few years older. So that's 2 years younger than I am now. I kind of get it, like, oh, I'm old, but you're not. But it's weird to look back then, like 40-something is not old, man. Like, but maybe for Cher, because she's been in the business for 30 years at that point as an entertainer, she's like, really? You know, you saw me in middle school 30 years ago, or when you were in middle school, I should say. So she might have felt slighted by that. Maybe. And he's making a joke, but maybe there's something to it.
I mean, she could have had all sorts of reasons why she bailed, but yeah.
Next, I heard that Jessica Lange was interested.
There you go. That's interesting casting.
She was even older, wasn't she?
No, Jessica Lange in 92 was 43.
Okay, so about the same as Christine Lochte.
Yeah, so age would have been fine. I could see her playing that character as well. She would have been a softer version of it, the way she is, the way she speaks. But still would have been interesting to see her. Again, an interesting role, and nothing against Christine, but these are all great. If I was a casting director or even the director and the casting director gave me these choices, I'd be hard pressed of who to choose, really.
Yeah, same.
So now Jessica's on board. Cool.
I was excited, having admired her work for years. I planned to fly to Florida, where she was shooting Cape Fear. I invited Holly to join me. After a pleasant dinner, they read a few scenes together. On the page, the words were lively, but when read, they seemed flat. I suggested a few adjustments, trying to inject a bit more levity, but it didn't help, and I didn't feel comfortable pushing it further. On the long plane ride home, Holly asked how dare I not cast Jessica Lange. This devolved into a fight, and we hardly spoke for the rest of the flight. By the time we landed in L.A., Holly was out.
So there you go. Holly quit.
I'm not a big fan of hers. I like Meg Tilly in this better than her.
Sure. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. But so Holly's out.
Undaunted, I pressed on. Who needs movie stars? I'll cast great actresses. Christine Lottie and Meg Tilly are funny and soulful, and my brilliant direction will make it work.
He's right about the first where he's saying, yeah, I've got these two incredible actresses. So with them on board and my awesome directing, look at me in glory, we got something here. So he was right about the first thing. He was being facetious about the second.
Mm-hmm.
Christine, Meg, and I start rehearsing and get along fabulously. Christine was droll and inventive on screen and just as much fun off. Meg had exactly the right blend of sweetness and otherness. It was a joy.
So why is it revisionist history on his part or her? Like, and he didn't make any bones about Matthew. So maybe Meg, to her credit, felt what she felt about Ed, but he was wholly unaware of it.
Yeah, that could be possible.
And I know Ed's going to watch our podcast, of course. So he's going to see what we shared about what Meg said. I wonder if he'd be a little bit heartbroken by that, because I wonder if he was completely unaware that's how she felt.
He probably knows now. Like, he's probably heard,
This was only written like a year or two ago. This is not very old, this book.
Oh, yeah. Maybe he just opted not to talk about. I don't know. It is a little.
But he talked about Matthew. He makes no bold. He talked about how he had a falling out with Holly. Like, it's not like he's afraid to say, "Hey, this didn't work out."
True. Yeah, maybe he didn't know.
I think Meg, the way she is, she might have just
kept it to herself.
She had her issues with him, but he was none the wiser. That's my guess.
Yeah.
He had a great shoot, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm done with this guy." That's why she didn't expand on it. She didn't share any reasons why. She just something she felt. Look, at the end of the day, not everyone gets along with everybody. You can not like somebody, but you can't put your finger on it. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Okay.
And this does make me a little sad, because he's like, they're both really good and they play the parts perfectly. But because they weren't the draw at the level of like a Cher, the movie didn't make money. And
if you were to ask me Christine Lottie who that is, I wouldn't tell you before studying for this film. Like, oh, that's her. But I know who Holly Hunter, Cher, Jessica Lange are without Googling it.
It's kind of unfortunate that that's the way it is, because, I mean, how do you break through then? How do you become the superstar?
Oh, I want to say something else before I forget. So it's interesting that the trailer for this film, it actually was like, from the director of Glory. They made sure they said that. So Glory, they made sure from the director of Glory. And another interesting thing, this was the first film of the three that we've reviewed where it starts off with an Edswick film or an Edwardswick film. So that's a very, what a director, this is now a Quentin Tarantino, a Steven Spielberg film. Like, that's where when the films start with the credits and it starts with Edwardswick film. His other two films didn't have that beginning. This one did because of Glory.
Made a name for himself now. Interesting.
Exactly. We'll see if that trend continues with further films.
After the first couple of weeks shooting, when I looked at a few scenes cut together, it just sort of sat there. Was there something intrinsically off in the script? Was it my work?
He's starting to see the dailies and it's not clicking. He even says, is it my work? Is this how I'm putting this film together? Something's not working. Again, if you want to go back to Meg's feelings on maybe there's something that she's not quite giving to him as a director and he doesn't know what's going on. Like, there's something going on here on the production side of things that maybe he's not understanding what's happening.
I knew I should call the studio, tell them it wasn't going well, possibly even suggest pulling the plug. Instead, I soldiered on, trying to reconcile the unholy cocktail of ego, denial, and fear roiling in my gut. Thelma and Louise, meanwhile, had just come out and was a big hit. For 3 more months, I resolutely cheered on the actors and crew. But once we were back in L.A. in my cutting room, no matter how hard we worked, there was something intractably pleasant and inoffensively nice about the movie that resisted our efforts to bring it to life. Sensing my despair, Sidney joined me in the cutting room. At times he was angry, however much he tried not to show it. After a couple days working together, he too was defeated. His disappointment in me was obvious, even though it was he who had developed the script.
So what do you think's happening here?
I don't know, but it sounds like they gave up on it, and so therefore they put no effort into marketing the movie.
Yeah, there could be a combination of that as well. I mean, now Thelma and Louise has been out for 3 or 4 months. It's a big mega hit, huge hit with critics and fans, and they kind of recognize they have a spiritual cousin to that film being developed right now, being edited, and they're like, oh boy, I don't know how this is going to be viewed with the public. Maybe they're just nervous. They see the writing on the wall, the obvious comparisons. And in the back of his mind, it's like, man, I turned down that film. So maybe he's a little disheartened. Like, shite, I turned down that film.
Yeah, again, though, that is bothersome to me, though, because I don't see it. Like, the movie turned out really well.
Well,
So
we're talking
I
about
guess-
hindsight's 2020.
I know. Yeah.
Keep in mind, this is at the moment. This is 30 odd years ago. This is what they're feeling then. But you're right. Now yeah, you're right. It's independent of all the other things in the background. It's a well loved. Those who have seen it seem to enjoy it, but it's a matter of getting people to see it. And there's a couple reasons why it wasn't seen. You'll hear it in a second here.
At the first preview, the audience's response was muted. Our numbers were barely acceptable. The moderator of the focus group asked how many of them would recommend this movie to a friend. A few raised their hands. The rest sat on them. Steve Rosenblum was waiting for me in the lobby when I walked out, shaken. "Don't worry, pal," he said. "You're going to get to make lots of other movies." I wanted to murder him. It's a feeling I often have about Steve while working together when he persists in telling me a hard truth. There's always some magical thinking when a troubled movie is about to open. Maybe it'll be a sleeper. A critical darling. But you can tell by the oversized smiles on the faces of the marketing executives that they're just trying to make you feel better. They've been here before.
People are like, oh, they're nervous. Everyone's nervous. This film doesn't resonate with audiences. So even test audiences back then, Katie, didn't seem to quite enjoy it. How many of you would recommend this film? Test audiences were like, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. So he did confirm they didn't market the movie. It was done before it was even released.
Well, because it takes money. You want to spend more money on this thing? They weren't confident. So it's like, oh, why spend more money on this thing? Just let it die.
Because of the test audience thing, I have such a different experience with it. Maybe it was before its time.
We're talking about the dialogue. It sounds like current writing, and that's a compliment to Ed. But it might have been too quirky, or it's very intelligent writing, and the dialogue that the actors or the characters have with each other is very quirky, intelligent. That it might have. I don't think that writing was necessarily in Thelma and Louise. It was more like bing bang boom boom.
Quippy,
yeah, and you got the Brad Pitt with the hairdryer, and like Oof. Woman be free. I know, but you don't have that in this film. You have that goofy guy reading Grapes of Wrath, right?
Yeah, and the nerdy guy that marries 66.
Yeah.
Actually, another character we didn't talk about that I wanted to make sure we brought up was the Walt character, who at first were like, oh my God, he's going to rape her. But then he ends up kind of being her friend. Christine Lottke's character, Darlie, he recognizes her. The actor's name is James Gammon, and he plays Walt. He is the major league coach.
Oh, wow.
Lou, like I was like, oh my God, that's the coach from Major League.
That was kind of a weirdly uncomfortable scene too, though. It gets a little handsy.
Did you? I'm paying good money here. I don't want to talk about Joe Ryan.
Okay, fine. 400.
Why?
One question and I'll shave $100. Come on.
Then we...
Yeah, sure.
Deal.
So, did you see her?
Yeah.
Was she,
You said one.
Fine. $350. Was she, was she okay?
Yeah, I guess.
No, wait. What do you mean, okay?
Ask.
I know, but was she, Hey, Walt, come on. Come on, just tell me, okay? Tell me.
200.
Fuck you.
Hey.
Let go! No!
What's the matter? I thought you liked it. You dated Joe Ryan. Do you like it like that? If you do, that's fine with me. I'm getting sick of this.
Okay. Just wait, please. Just one thing, okay? Just describe her to me, okay? Here, look. It's $200. Okay, look. Please.
But even though he lets her go, but he, thank goodness she didn't seal that deal.
On the opening day for Leaving Normal, I stopped by a theater in Santa Monica to see how the audience of the 4:00 show would react. They didn't. Then again, there wasn't much of an audience. I walked outside to check the size of the audience lining up for the 6:00 show. There wasn't one. Not a soul in sight. It looked like a neutron bomb had been dropped. Tumbleweeds were blowing across the 3rd Street Promenade. I looked around and saw smoke rising over downtown to the east. When I got in the car and turned on the radio, I heard about Rodney King. The LA riots had begun. That night, everyone in America was home watching TV.
How old were you when those broke out, if you don't mind aging yourselves? Do you remember 92? I was 17, so I remember this very well.
10 or 11.
Okay, so you probably peripherally heard about a 10 and 11-year-old. You weren't quite getting what was going on.
I mean, I remember it being in the ether. Like that was like and like, you know, back then it's like your parents watched the 6 o'clock news and
so a lot of people were home. There's no internet, so the only way to kind of follow the news on this stuff was you weren't going to theater. You were at home on your TVs, and so this was a kind of a bad opening weekend for this film to come out.
It is, but again, like I don't know what he was expecting. No one's heard of this movie. Of course, no one's lining up to see it.
No, you're right about that. It didn't. The rides probably didn't help. You might have gotten a few more people in the seats.
The next morning, the reviews called the movie a pale version of Thelma and Louise. It played for one more weekend and then disappeared without a trace.
That's very quick for even back then, because 90s movies were around forever in theaters. The fact that it was only in for a couple of weekends, they're like, gone, done. We're not paying for the screen time anymore for these theaters.
Yeah, it's too bad because I think it got compared to Thelma and Louise just because of the timing.
Thelma and Louise was released 5 years earlier. I don't think anyone would have done that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the office on Monday morning, the phone hardly rang. In fact, it wouldn't do so again for months. I was in what the agents charmingly referred to as movie jail. You never forget your first flop. It's the moment it dawns on you that you've been on a tightrope all along.
I really like that part there where he says, you know, you did Glory. And it shows you, even after a movie like Glory, the forgiveness that studios will give you is a very tight rope. It's like, holy smokes, you've given us that movie Glory and All About Last Night, and all of a sudden I give you one bad film and the phone stopped ringing. You're in jail. Like, holy smokers.
Fickle business. Yeah.
He's in movie jail right now. His next motion picture is Legends of the Fall. Sweeping budget, big name actor. Like, how did he get that film?
Before the train wreck that was leaving Normal, having made 2 very successful movies and a hit TV show to boot, I felt as if I'd finally been invited into the club. In this case, a metaphorical club, but nonetheless clubby. Chatting with Spielberg and Scorsese at parties, dinners with the Hanks or the Washingtons. I was nevertheless incapable of escaping the gnawing fear that it could all come crashing down at any moment. A waking nightmare my first flop seemed to confirm. After all, in a town rife with schadenfreude, it wasn't hard to interpret the subtly consoling glances. My experience with Leaving Normal was only the first inkling of the most important lesson I still needed to learn. That a director's career is a distance event, not a sprint. A quick glance at an experienced director's IMDb page reveals a run of great success, if he's lucky, leavened by just as much time in the wilderness. Or, as Preston Sturges put it, a hit is something you do between flops. As hard as it is to break in, it's just as hard to stay relevant. It's never a question of if you're going to get knocked down, but when. And most of all, how long it takes you to get up.
It'll beat you to your knees if you let it, Katie.
Good one.
So Katie, would you recommend this film to people?
100%. And again, I just wanted to point out that it didn't follow the super formulaic model in that we get an ending that is appropriate. It's not what either of them expected it to be, and it's maybe not what they thought they wanted. Just like the Rolling Stones was just here last night. you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need sometimes. And I love that we didn't get the perfect bow tie of the daughter meeting her.
Interesting, because one of the criticisms this film faced was that it was a happy ending. It was too cliche. And I'm like, no.
It was a content ending. They found happiness in their newfound life together with those pseudo-adopted boys.
Yeah, I thought it was great, yeah.
Who, by the way, one of which, I wouldn't be me without bringing this up. I don't know which one of them. Apparently, whichever one was Clyde on IMDb. You know how it's their current picture or a somewhat recent picture? He is extremely hot, like as an adult man. Like I know he was a kid in that, but Daryl Dennis, you guys, look him up.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I too would recommend this film, especially if you're watching this or taking this journey with us. And this is an Edswick Film Podcast, and you're kind of curious about his films and discussion about his films, and you haven't seen this film, like I said, send me an email and I'll be happy to send you the link to where I found the film online, or obviously support Ed and the production company buying the film on Amazon. I actually don't know how that works because it's going to be a secondhand purchase from somebody. You can't buy it new anywhere, I don't think. Like I said, I didn't have time to order it and have it arrive. We had a recording date set, and I was like, I'm not changing the date, and I got to get this thing watched. So I used to be able to stream stuff like by rental. It never occurred to me this wasn't available to buy or rent.
I have run into this a couple times in Retromade.
You have. I've heard you talk about that. Yeah.
The library, you have to have enough lead time, but a lot of times you can get it from your library.
True. Very true. And I guarantee this is not available in our public libraries. Maybe, but
you have to request it from some other library. You know how they have like a network.
Does it come to you as a stream or is it a hard copy?
It's a DVD. Yeah. Like a physical.
Like the old days of Netflix when they used to deliver DVDs to your door. Remember that?
I have to go to my library to pick it up, but yeah.
Oh, I got you. Okay, copy. Okay. Oh, interesting. Well, I too enjoyed this very much. Katie, again, people can find Katie on the Retromade podcast. Check the show notes. I'll provide that link in the show notes. Wonderful podcast, Katie. You are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on this. I'm glad we got to cover Leaving Normal. I think this was a fantastic journey. And join us on the next episode where Katie will join us again, where we'll discuss Legends of the Fall. Girls, get your fans and, wave your face off because we're going to look at Brad Pitt and his long hair for a couple hours.
Everyone named their kid Tristan after that.
Of course they did. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching.